Hi, my name is Richard Zheng. I'm 23 years old and I was born in China in the city of Haikou. It is situated on the most southern island of China and it is considered to be the Hawaii of China. I started the violin when I was 6.5 years old and with a Chinese teacher, and he prepared me for the audition to enter the Conservatoire de Musique de Montréal when I was 9. So I got accepted there and then I started to study with Anne Robert, which was one of my most important mentors throughout my violin learning. So I studied with her for 12 years until the last year of my bachelor. When I got to CEGEP, I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue the violin, so I did a double deck in violin and health science. However, I kept skipping a lot of classes just so I could have time to practice, and that's when I realized that I was just going to focus on the violin. After my bachelor, I applied for a scholarship at the Jeunesse Musicale Foundation, and they really helped me get to go study abroad with a full scholarship. And then I got accepted at the Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh to do 2 years of masters with Andrus Cardenas. And right now I am mostly I have my violin duet with my girlfriend and violin partner. It's called Duo Vivo, and I'm mostly playing in orchestra concerts. So I chose the violin at first. I really tried to convince my parents to play an instrument, and they gave me the choice between the violin and the piano. Those were the two instruments they really preferred, and it was also two of my choices. And at that time I really loved the sound of the violin more than the piano, and also our place was pretty small, so we had limited space, couldn't really afford to put a piano in our house. So I decided to go with the violin. My favorite piece for since 2 or 3 years before has been Daphnis and Chloe from Maurice Ravel. Usually my favorite pieces would depend on what I am currently playing, the piece I'm currently working on, either solo or chamber music or with orchestra. But Daphnis and Chloe right now is really the piece I always go back to listen when I want to listen classical music, like outside of when I'm actually playing it. What I love about it is really it is one of the pieces from the Impressionist period. So other artists that come to mind would be Monet, and I usually like to compare Impressionist composers to Monet's paintings because every one of his paintings are, when you look really closely, every stroke is so detailed, and that when you see the big picture, it's always such a wonderful piece of art. It's the same thing with Maurice Ravel's pieces, especially Daphnis and Chloe. Everything he writes is so detailed in the score. Really, the orchestra players, they really know exactly what they need to do, exactly how they are going to play their instrument at certain points. And when we are really respecting all those precisions in the part, at the end it really creates a wonderful result. So when I play in orchestra, What goes through my mind usually is really trying to be together and trying to connect with all of my violin section partners and colleagues. In an orchestra, the boss is the conductor, so he really decides what to do. So he really gives the energy to the orchestra, and our job here is to receive this energy and try to have this kind of circular energy in the orchestra to build up all together so that the conductor's message is passing through the orchestra and then going into the public. So here in orchestra, what it's all about is really about receiving all that energy and being in this wave of energy. And then when I play in solo, the things that goes in my mind is very different from the orchestra. So here in solo, instead I am my own boss, so I get to decide what I want to do and what the musical ideas I want to express. And so before every performance, I would always try to visualize images for every section of my piece, and then put together, it makes a movie basically. I also want to think about a story so that when I perform, I can really imagine that story, and when it's really clear in my head, then I can easily communicate it with my violin. I think that every failure that I encountered really helped me learn from my mistakes so that I could find the right tools to avoid repeating the same mistakes. What comes to mind would be when I would audition for an orchestra audition, or simply any other kinds of audition, or when I would feel that it didn't go so well, I would always listen back to my recordings of those performances, even though I really feel like uncomfortable listening to me myself playing. It's kind of like listening to your own recording of speaking. So when I listen to it, I can really fully analyze what is going on and what I can do to avoid doing those kind of mistakes. At the end of the day, after every performance, I want to heal people's souls and make them feel better. One quote that my violin teacher, Anne Robert, would always tell me is to not forget that musicians are the doctors of the soul. And so really as a performer, I really feel privileged to be able to help people feel better after every performance. And it's also really about, music is really about communicating my emotions and my feelings to the public. So the way COVID-19 impacted my artistic life would be that it made me more proactive. It made me become more of an entrepreneur. When I say that is, I really tried to create my own opportunities to perform and to really do my job as a performer. So during the pandemic, I started a violin duet with my girlfriend, Roxane Sicard, and we created Duo Vivo. So we set up a website, we set up our Facebook page where we're pretty much active every week. Duo Vivo really, the Vivo comes from the fact that we're both young violinists. There's a word in Italian, vivace, that we use a lot in classical music. It's a word that we love. It's vivid, it's lively, and we want it to be that duet that inspires a younger generation, and being like this like exciting duet, as much for young people as for older people. One incredible mistake I did during a performance, it was pretty remarkable. It was in a situation where I was pretty nervous. I was playing the Shostakovich Violin Concerto with the Conservatoire's Symphony Orchestra, Conservatoire de Montréal's Symphony Orchestra. And usually in our job, playing a concerto with an orchestra is the most stressful thing to do, because you play with your colleagues hear you, and the public also hears you, and sometimes you're really exposed. Towards the end of the concert, I think there was 30 seconds left in my piece. Everything was going super well. However, I started to get pretty nervous because the ending of the piece is a big run, and it's pretty hard. And so I started to kind of feel like I lose control of my bow, and I was on an up bow, and at that point I really tried to gain more control of my bow, but instead it did the opposite. I literally dropped my bow, and thank God it was on an up bow and not a down bow, because the bow just went flying in midair, like not super high, it just went flying around here, and I had like a fraction of a second to pick back my bow and restart to play where I left off. And that tension where the bow just lifted in the air, I could feel it throughout the whole orchestra. I think almost half the orchestra just kind of stopped playing and was just wondering, oh my God, what is gonna happen? And then it was only really just 1 second, but for me at that moment, it felt like a lifetime. It felt like if like in the movies where it was like in slow motion. And so that was a pretty incredible thing that happened. So now I want to talk about the violin that I own right now. I've had this violin for around almost 3 years, and it is from a very generous loan from a man named Roger Dubois, who is the president of the Canimex Foundation. So this violin is a Lorenzo Storioni, made in 1780 in the city of Cremona in Italy. So basically the golden age of violin making was in the 18th century in Cremona. What I really love about this violin more than any other violins that I've tried is that it's really a perfect fit for myself. So when you choose a violin, basically you're choosing an extension of your own body parts. So you can almost compare it to an organ transplant. It really has to match perfectly so that it works. And so this violin really is an extension of my body, of my mind, of my soul. So everything I do when I play the violin really corresponds to my violin, my playing style. One piece of advice I would give to someone about to enter the same career path as me would be to take as much opportunity and chances to perform. And if you are having trouble finding those opportunities, you can work on creating those opportunities. So It can be taking as much auditions as possible if you're able to prepare for every one of them. It can be also just auditioning for competitions or for orchestra jobs, but it can also be as silly as playing for your friends, playing for your colleagues, because every time you perform, you learn a lot from it and make me less nervous the next time I play it, because playing a piece for the first time is always very nerve-wracking. I always have to break the ice in a less stressful situation when I perform a new piece. So you can find my work on YouTube. You can subscribe to my channel. It's called Richard Zheng, and most of my work is so we also have a YouTube channel for our duet Duo Vivo. We have a Facebook page for Duo Vivo, and you can find us on our website duovivoduet.com.
I would like to acknowledge the support of the Official Language Minority Community Media Consortium and the Government of Canada for the Community Media Strategic Support Plan.